And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the New York Mets post-game show. It's your boy CP. And as you can tell, it is John from PureAdrenaline Sports right by my side. This is the very first post-game episode between myself and John, and we cannot wait. This has been a long time coming, and we cannot wait to present to you all this New York Mets post-game show. We have a very, very special post-game show here for you all tonight, in which we'll be talking about a sweep by our New York Mets, 8-3 over the Boston Red Sox. John, how are you doing today?
Awesome stuff, man. What a game. The Mets jump out early, make it interesting for the longest time. And then, like you said, behind the scenes, the Mets put up another big inning in the eighth, but we'll get into all of that as well. But yeah, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll get into all of that. We'll get into the pitching. We'll have a Tyler Megill start to discuss. We'll get into the X's and O's. I do have some words, some choice words for Tyler Megill, with not really a great outing in my book. But like I said, it's really hard not to be positive right now with such a crucial sweep, especially in taking into consideration what the Atlanta Braves are doing and who they're going up against right now, and them securing the victory over the Colorado Rockies, or just about. But like I said, everyone in the chat, please hit that thumbs up. This is being dual broadcasted to my channel at CPNY Sports and the Pure Adrenaline Sports podcast. We are going to be doing these post-game shows more often than not. We might even get Rob to join us on a handful of streams as well. I know his work schedule is kind of limiting to that fact, but it's like I said, I'm just so excited for this collaboration, John. I appreciate you having me on here as well. And I appreciate everyone in the chat. So please hit that thumbs up button and please hit that subscribe button. And congratulations to you, by the way, good sir, on 4,000 subscribers over on your YouTube channel as well.
Man, first off, CP, thank you so much. Man, tonight's stream was unbelievable. At one point, we almost had 500 people watching. Our biggest live stream ever, and just getting bigger. The more and more intense these games get, the more and more the crowd on the live streams during the games are getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly, you just said it perfectly. These games are getting more intense. It's September 4th. The Mets are heading into an off day. They're right in the thick of things in this NL wildcard race. A couple months ago, we weren't even sure if we're going to be getting competitive baseball out of our New York Mets. And here we are on a post game with just about 100 people watching us, getting our analysis on this game. So let's give the people what they want. Let's talk about the pitching here in just a second. Or for just a second, I should say. I want to talk about Tyler Megill. Obviously, this is his second start back after being recalled after the Paul Blackburn injury. Paul Blackburn, as we all know, is rehabbing in AAA Syracuse right now. He is scheduled to come back very shortly, and the Mets are going to have a decision to make on Tyler Megill. A polar opposite start in this start against the Boston Red Sox than his last time out against the lowly White Sox. What did you make of his start? Because when I analyze Tyler Megill, I always, in every single Tyler Megill start, I always approach it with skepticism.
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't even want to upgrade it to cautious optimism. And I said it on the pregame between Rob and myself on our Amazing Mets pregame show before tonight's matchup.
Oh, lost your mic. Lost your mic. Either you're muted or something happened.
Am I all good?
There you go.
Okay. Technical difficulties here on the very first post.
That's all right.
I definitely apologize about that. But I'm trying to, I guess, gauge your thoughts and opinions on this Tyler Megill start, because every single time I go into a Tyler Megill start, I approach it with a lot of skepticism. And the reason for that is that I truly don't think he's fully caught the grasp of commanding his full arsenal. If you look at the 60 plus pitches that he threw today, and Carlos Mendoza pulled a quick trigger on him in terms of taking him out of the game in that situation in the fourth inning and bringing in Alex Young. But you look at the pitch distribution of his 67 pitches, 30 plus of those were four-seam fastballs and 14 of those were cutters. He only threw the slider about 8 times. He only threw his splitter, right? The new pitch that he was trying to work into his arsenal 2 times tonight. So when I see this varying degree of the pitch selection out of Tyler Megill. I'm not saying it's just him calling these pitches. I'm not saying it's just the catcher. I'm not sure exactly who's calling these pitches for these guys day in and day out. I know some guys like Luis Severino call their own pitches, but a guy like Tyler Megill, when you have a new pitch, when you're still trying to figure out the command of all your pitches, it's just a little bit of an eyebrow raiser. But like I said, want to talk about that just briefly to open things up before we get into the meat and bones of this postgame, because there's nothing else negative that we should be saying about this team right now.
Yeah, well, when it comes to Megill, I don't know what it is. A few years ago, I was fine with him. Didn't have, always worried about his starts. But the last couple of years, and especially this year, I just have no confidence in him. Even though he went 5 1/3 his last outing tonight, he started off great. But then, let's see here. Oh, it was the third inning. He kind of fell apart. But yeah, I just have no confidence in him. But the problem right now with Blackburn still rehabbing, right now the Mets really don't have anybody else to put in that spot. So hopefully, and with Senga not being 100% healthy yet, still you got to go with somebody, and he's got major league experience. So, but what I did like about tonight was Mendoza didn't waste any time taking him out. Other games, he's let these pitchers try to figure it out, but not tonight. So, but yeah, I have no confidence in Megill any start.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think that Tyler Megill will get pulled back down. He has 2 options remaining on his contract, so the Mets are very flexible in terms of replacing him very easily when Paul Blackburn is ready to go. Like I said, Megill can catch lightning in a bottle. We've seen that in a handful of starts. I do think he has a lot of upside in terms of the raw talent, but he just hasn't been able to fully put it together in his MLB career. But what I will say on the flip side of things to make this a little bit more positive, right? The bullpen showed up tonight and they did the job, especially getting called in there early. We saw the 2 lefties. We saw Huascar Brazaban. At one point, it was back-to-back innings of crucial double plays that the Mets got to get themselves out of jams. Yes, we would like to see the walks, especially out of the bullpen in close games, sort of dwindle down just a little bit. But the fact that these guys are able to navigate through tough waters and make the proper pitches, and that big pitch, whether it's getting the ground ball double play with a runner on first and third with less than 2 outs, or getting that crucial strikeout, is absolutely, I guess, a confidence booster for me, but not really me, because I've always been a firm believer in this bullpen. If you all know me, if you all been paying attention to my channel, I'm a firm believer with the names on this roster, names strictly speaking, and the stuff that they have: Maton, Brazaban, Stanek, the 2 lefties. It doesn't matter. Edwin Diaz, whoever you throw out there, Reed Garrett. I love this bullpen on paper. Sometimes, right, the talent on paper doesn't translate, and we've seen that in recent weeks with this bullpen. But for the longevity of this season, from now until the end, John, I have full confidence in them. What about you?
And I give you credit for that, because when I found you and Rob doing shows, you're 100% right. You have been 100% on top of this bullpen. I thought you were a little crazy, but as the games are getting bigger and bigger, they're coming through. Now, a couple of hiccups tonight with Maton with the what do you have back-to-back singles there when he came in, but he gets out of it. So kudos to you for being on top of it all this way. And now in these big game situations, they're all coming through in big spots. Like you said, what do we have? 5 shutout innings tonight. So, and against the good Boston Red Sox team. So, we get a couple. I don't want to say easy series coming up, but definitely not the level of competition as the Red Sox should have been.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that Reds series coming up after the off day too. Edwin Diaz comes in, obviously gives up that leadoff walk, strikes out his next batter, gets a couple of, actually he struck out 2. The graphic is actually wrong. I apologize. He struck out 2 with 1 walk, but 0 hits given up. Edwin Diaz was absolutely electric. I know a lot of people, a lot of fans were pissed off. They were kind of worried about him as well after that sort of meltdown he had in Arizona, giving up the grand slam to Corbin Carroll, but he has conducted himself in a true elite bullpen closer manner ever since that little hiccup. And you know what? He's looking like the old Edwin Diaz, and that's exactly what we've come to know, love, and expect out of Edwin Diaz. So the Mets are definitely going to need his services, just like he put in tonight. And it's good to see him finally get into the game, right? After some extended rest.
Right. And I didn't hear it. I did have, because I was doing the live stream. Somebody in my chat said, one of the announcers tonight for the Mets said Diaz just needs to keep throwing angry.
Absolutely.
I didn't hear who it was, but they said one of the guys said it. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is not even a question about it. You take a look at the slider that he threw to Corbin Carroll on that grand slam, right? And then you take a look at what he did the next day. I believe he threw 18 pitches the next day for the save in that tight ball game, and about 17 of them were fastballs. And he was rearing back 99, 100. He even has one in his back pocket if he rears back far enough. So like we know he has that electricity, and you can tell when he's out there throwing with a purpose or if he's out there throwing that slider unnecessarily, because there's not many guys that are going to catch up to that fastball high and in with that type of run coming in at their hands. There's simply not. That is something that Edwin Diaz excels in, and I really do appreciate Francisco Alvarez being that kind of general back there and instilling that confidence again in Edwin Diaz when he seems to lose it a little bit. But honestly, you know what? The pitching was fantastic today. Outside of Tyler Megill, the bullpen gets it done, and the Mets get the win. Let's talk about a little bit of the offense. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a drier conversation because really, up until that eighth inning, the only thing that we could have really talked about was the Jesse Winker grand slam.
Right.
But that is the perfect guy that I want to talk about right now in the contributions that he is bringing to this Mets team ever since. And I'm not talking about his production on field strictly. I'm also talking about the intangibles, the leadership, the vibe that he brings to this team and how he's meshing in with this team. The OMG sign. It doesn't matter if he's hitting the home run like tonight or somebody else is. He's always part of those OMG pictures in the dugout, I feel like. And that is something that is really special. You can see the camaraderie and the bond with this team, not only, right, presumably in the clubhouse, but how it translates to the on-field sort of mannerisms. And that's something that was completely lacking in 2023. So I'm curious to get your perspective on that, because we really haven't talked about that amongst ourselves between me and you, about how this team just looks like they're vibing and gelling together as a cohesive unit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this team, even some of the guys you didn't think were kind of like, I know Lindor and McNeil have always seemed to kind of have that little rift between them. I'm not seeing that this year, but a great point was brought up during this during the game broadcast that one of the announcers said, what it take Winker all of 5 minutes to feel like he was part of this Mets team, right? I mean, he's got the history with the Met fans. So, I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy in the clubhouse. So he just fit in. The way they're acting with each other kind of reminds me of the 2015 team a little bit. But even though they didn't make a playoff run that year, 2019, this team was fairly decent in 2019 because of the Alonso. I mean, we all had the Alonso home run hype for the rookie record. And I'm just getting those same kind of vibes. That 2019 season, I did not want that season to end just because of how the team felt like a complete team and coming together.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely agree with you. Was that the season where Tom Smith hit that grand slam at the very last game of the season?
Yeah. Yep.
That was it, right? Against the Braves. He came back from injury. Yep. I remember that like it was just yesterday. But yeah, that was a special season, especially as far as the home runs go for Pete Alonso. They didn't make the playoffs, unfortunately, but I definitely agree with you. Yeah, 100%. I mean, the offense, let's be honest here. Tanner Houck, after that grand slam, he kind of settled in. And I said it on the pregame. This guy's a talented pitcher. He's not going to wow you with the fastball, but the run that he has. I mean, how many times did he make Pete Alonso look absolutely foolish up there with the slider? About 3 or 4 separate occasions. And I know that Pete Alonso has perpetually struggled against that down and out slider. And that's no surprise that he was kind of swinging and whiffing at that. But like, there's just something about Tanner Houck and how he was able to settle in after that grand slam. A lot of other pitchers surrender a grand slam and they kind of, the wheels kind of fall off, but not him. And that's kind of a credit to him. But at the end of the day, the Mets Pitching was able to weather the storm just enough after the Tyler Megill meltdown, and obviously the offense comes through in the 8th inning. Not really thanks to their hits, more so because they had 4 or 5 different walks, the Boston Red Sox pitching in that 8th inning. But yeah, 100%. This offense, right? We say it all the time in the pregames, and I'm curious to get your take in terms of how just like deep this offense is in your mind, because I take a look at the everyday lineups that Carlos Mendoza puts together, whether it's Tyrone Taylor, whether it's JD Martinez when he comes back, whether it's flip-flopping Alvarez and Torrens, or deploying a dual catcher, right, lineup where one is catching and one is DHing. It doesn't matter what sort of combination Carlos Mendoza throws out there. I'm confident in this offense to put up runs every single night in and night out, no matter what the personnel is. So I'm curious about what you think on that. And also, just like anybody in this lineup that you are like, I guess, watching more so than the rest. Is there anybody in this line that you're watching more so than the rest? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, a couple things though. To go back to Houck, I have never watched him pitch, so tonight was the first night. And like you said, after he gave up that grand slam, he retired 13 Mets in a row, and 6 straight strikeouts as well. So he was unbelievable. But this team at the trade deadline, I know Met fans were kind of split between Winker and getting Conforto, and I was on the Winker side. So I wanted Winker. Winker's fastly becoming one of my favorite Mets. I don't know if he's under contract at all after this season, but hopefully they can keep him around as well. But man, this lineup, it's, even though it can be frustrating, like tonight, 4 runs in the first, then they go the rest of the game without doing anything, really. I mean, they did have 1 inning where they got back-to-back hits with 2 outs, but really nothing much after that. So they kind of get frustrating to me still. Even though they put up 8 tonight, it's weird to think you can complain about the offense. But it seems like a lot of games and a lot of our live streams, you'll see it in the chat where it'll say, remember, I know it's a frustrating start, but once the Mets get through the third time through the lineup, when they start that third time through the lineup against the pitchers, that's when the offense usually comes to life. So I don't know. It's tough to see. On paper, if you look at this lineup, you're like, man, this team's going to score, 5+ runs almost every night. But then you get some games where nothing's happening. And I mean, I know that's why they play the game, but just gets to be frustrating. Even though we're 12 games over 500 now, it's still very frustrating when, we're still, people in my chat will be like, well, think about where they were in May and where they are now. But still, it's still okay to be frustrated with this team, even though we're playing well.
Yeah, 100%. Because like I always preach when I talk about the Mets, I want to see a good process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because good process leads to good results. And I see sometimes, and I've seen in the past, especially the past couple of weeks, the situational hitting is like, it's great some days, and then it's just piss poor the next couple of days. And it's kind of like, find a happy medium, please, for crying out loud. And so I really do think right now, like tonight, obviously the Mets get the job done. I would like to see a little bit more consistent offense because they front loaded their runs today in the front end and then in the back end. Obviously, last night in their win, they got off to a slow start against Cutter Crawford. But at the end of the day, it almost seems like I'm kind of nitpicking when it comes to that. And I really do think on a night in and night out basis, at this point of the season, I'm seeing more good at bats rather than bad at bats. With the exception of Pete Alonso for the most part, right? I mean, I know he's putting the ball over the fence on a more consistent rate over the last 7 or 8 games. He's still striking out at a very high clip. He's still chasing a lot of pitches as well. But also, one guy that I want to shout out, in addition to Mark Vientos, because Mark Vientos had a hell of a game. He had a couple of great swings today following up his home run from last night. Francisco Alvarez. Obviously, he has a couple of brutal at-bats in the first couple of times up last night. He gets that opposite field ground ball single to the right side. First base coach Antoine Richardson kind of puts his arm around Francisco Alvarez, says, "Hey, good job," kind of calms him down, reassures him. And tonight, I really feel like Francisco Alvarez was seeing the ball well. Yes, I know he was only 1 of 3, but it seems like he was putting a lot more confident, well put together swings out there. And did you notice anything about that? Because honestly, when I assess these hitters, I'm not looking at what the end result was. Yes, everybody loves a base hit. They're going to love the long ball. They're going to love the actual results of things. But if a guy's hitting the ball, right, the cover off the ball, and it happens to land right into a glove like it did, I believe it was Duran in center field where Alvarez smoked one and he got out. Like, that's still a perfect process to me. And more often than not, right, this is when you take the advanced metrics and the expected batting average, the exit velocities, all that good stuff. Those will find green eventually. So I really think Alvarez did a great job tonight. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. Alvarez, even though, like you said, he lined out to Duran on his first at bat, it felt like he was right on top of that pitch. He just hit it right at the defender. Unfortunately, he struck out then, but then he singled the other way. The Mets that are struggling, especially the righties, they got to start going the other way because they're all getting that slider outside, and until they start taking that pitch, I would love to see Alonso hit a home run every time he's up, but start hitting some base hits to right field, man. I just glitched out there for a second.
Yeah, I agree with you, though. I completely agree with you. And we had the discussion today on the pregame stream. And I'm kind of, I know it's probably bad of me to say in talking about Pete Alonso and my expectation of Pete Alonso. At this point of the season where the Mets need the most optimal sort of results, right, that each player can provide, I'm almost thinking that it's too little too late. And it's never too little too late, but I'm just the process of buying into being a gap to gap hitter. It seems like whether he's stubborn and not doing it intentionally because he wants to pull the ball and get as many home runs as he can in this contract year, or just simply the mechanics of his swing right now are just not allowing him to see the pitch and take it where it's pitched. I'm kind of on the train of not expecting that anymore. When Pete Alonso's at his best, he's driving the ball to the opposite field. That is no question about it. And so is that's the case for any good hitter in the MLB, right? Freddie Freeman is a prime example. When Freddie Freeman's on, he can pull the pitch over the fence, but he can also hit it to the left center field gap, right? And for a double. The same thing with Pete Alonso, but we haven't seen it on a consistent basis this year. It's going to hurt his contract value, but for the Mets and what they need from right now tonight on September 4th all the way until the end of the season in hopes of making a playoff appearance, I really do think at the very minimum we need to see the home run production from Pete Alonso that we've seen over the past week, because he's put about 4 balls over the fence. There's been a lot of different stretches of this season where it was like 30, 40, I dare I even say 50 at-bats in between a Pete Alonso home run. And that's simply unacceptable if he's not being that gap-to-gap hitter. He has to do something else, and that something else is just putting the ball over the fence.
Agreed. And in my live streams, it's always talked about what are the Mets going to re-sign Alonso. I honestly don't think so. I think they will offer him a contract that they think is fair. But unfortunately, and I tell my people in my chat all the time, the name on the back of both my Met shirts that I wear is Pete Alonso. He's my favorite Met, but I'm sorry, he's replaceable. And as much as that's going to suck to lose him, I think that's what's going to happen there. I agree. Ricardo says, I agree. Did we both click on that at the same time? I agree that Alonso.
No, I didn't click on it. You are in charge of the chat tonight. And by the way, shout out.
And first off, sorry to people that are watching on my channel, because I always keep up with the chat. And here in the post game, we cannot keep up with the chat.
We cannot, because it's being dual streamed, and honestly, we could be both looking at the same comment or a different comment, and it's going to kind of be glitchy. So we appreciate everybody in the chat. We're still trying to navigate the sort of chat function in terms of how we can do it with the dual broadcast. We're not ignoring anybody here. We're propping them up. I love to interact with you all. I see Cope's in here, Stoney's in here, David's in here, Junior, Stanley. all the usual supporters, Ray. If I could take an hour going up and down the list here. D, everybody, I appreciate you all being here, whether you're in my chat or whether you are in the Pure Adrenaline Sports chat. Please hit the thumbs up no matter where you are. Subscribe to both channels, all that good stuff. You know, we got to do this shameless promoting, but it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary, especially when we're going to be here for the long haul doing post games talking about our beloved Mets, John.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to get some. Ricardo says, it pains me to say this. I'll cry if Alonso doesn't come back. I think with having Boris as his agent, I think they're going to, which they should try to get the most money they can. But I do not think the Mets are the team that are going to give them the most money.
Something that's really interesting, and I think is the most likely scenario, and it just depends if Scott Boras and Pete Alonso want to take that route, is something that Junior's saying in the chat here as well. I've said this on my X account. I've actually floated this idea out on some of our streams as well with Rob, is that the most likely scenario, let's face it, nobody, doesn't matter what the totals end up for the RBIs and the home runs, nobody is really impressed, right? To the point of giving up the monetary value and the years on the contract that Pete Alonso, that the rumors had that he wanted, him and his camp wanted, right? So if they are going to play hardball, the most logical thing to do is give Pete Alonso that qualifying offer, see if he'll take another 2.0 type prove it year while being paid. I believe the QO is somewhere in the ballpark of $25 million. And listen, I'm not naive to the fact that there's probably some desperate team out there that will give Pete Alonso a longer term contract, whether it be 3 years, 5 years, or maybe even, dare I say, 6 years. But at the point of what is the AAV going to look like for it? And I really do think that David Stearns is bringing in a totally different approach than what the Mets were operating under with Billy Epler in terms of bring this guy in or back at all costs. Like Brandon Nimmo, great player, and the market for the center fielders when Brandon Nimmo was a free agent was obviously kind of sparse, and he was the headliner of it, so they had to overpay him, but they overpaid him, right, by a pretty good margin, I will say. But not only just that, I'm talking about obviously your Scherzers, your Verlanders, etc. In hindsight, nobody's going to complain because those guys are solidified future Hall of Famers, right, at the time.
Right.
But I really don't think that the Mets under David Stearns, under any circumstance, no matter what name you are or what name on the back of your jersey it is, maybe minus Juan Soto, that they're not going to, right? Maybe minus Juan Soto, right? I mean, I can't be dumb enough to not believe in that. But right, like a guy like Pete Alonso, who really hasn't proved it, right, over the last year when he was really supposed to prove it in all of the totality of 2024, I really do think that David Stearns is going to have a little bit more of a disciplinary approach to the contracts that he gives out, because they are working in a capacity where they have to think about the short term and the long term. Do you really want $30+ million on your books for 7 years or 8 years of Pete Alonso? I think a lot of people and the Alonso super fans, such as yourself, are starting to come to that realization. Now, let's say David Stearns approaches his camp and saying, and I don't want to kind of take this stream and talk about Pete Alonso this offseason, because we hear plenty of Pete Alonso talk from talking Mets with Rob already, and I want to reserve that for him, right? You know that as well as I do. But what I will say is that if the Mets, or I should say if Pete Alonso and Scott Boras are a little bit more realistic in their approach, I think a deal will get done. But realistic approaches and Scott Boras don't really go in the same sentence together. And I would just expect it to be a hard time in terms of the negotiation table.
Yeah, a couple guys in the chat here saying 5 years, 125 would be his offer. Ricardo says 4 years, 120. He might take that. 4 years, 120. I don't know.
I think the philosophy from Ricardo is give him a lower year value, but just blow him away with the AAV to the point where he can't really refuse it. I think that's the philosophy.
And Cope says Soto is the only player the Mets should be all in on. I feel like
I would like Anthony Santander. What do you think about that name?
Well, would you have to trade for him?
No, he's a free agent.
Oh, he's a free agent. Well, I don't. What position does he in? I'm not too familiar with Baltimore.
He's an outfielder, so
He's an
he'd probably
outfielder.
be a backup option if Juan Soto, if that plan fell
Yeah.
through, right? That's what I foreshadow.
Well, in terms of Pete, I mean, who would you think would be if let's not go crazy here, but a guy that I think could opt out of his deal would be Rhys Hoskins, and then he could become a free agent.
Did he have the opt out after the first year? I know he
He
said that
does.
your deal with the Brewers.
He
He
does.
did. Okay,
According to
that was a name. Yeah,
Spot Track, he's got an opt
yeah.
out. So
He was a guy that I was heavily interested in, and it's kind of funny to see how that sort of situation unfolded in that very first series. I was actually on deck for that game where this sort of argument broke out between the two camps. But listen, I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot of different routes you can take if Pete Alonso's not back on this team. I think a lot of people are accepting of that, whether it's external options or internal options. But at the end of the day, yeah, Christian Walker. I mean,
Christian Walker.
yeah, you got Christian Walker as a free agent. Yeah,
Yep.
there's a lot of options. There's a lot of options, and I guess I'll just say that. But like I said, let's not bombard this stream with Pete Alonso talk. We do have a win to talk about. 8-3 final score of tonight's ball game to complete the sweep. A sweep feels so damn good, doesn't it, John?
It does.
Not just a series win, but a sweep.
And not just to get not just a sweep. You sweep a team that's fighting for their playoff hopes as well. So the Mets with this sweep send Boston to 500. They're now 70-70. So one team heading in the right direction in our Mets, and the Boston Red Sox on the way down.
On the way down as well. Yeah, their bullpen has been absolutely just taxed, and they have not been performing. So we'll see how that sort of AL race comes to fruition and ends up, because the Royals also have fallen off a little bit as well, and they're kind of competing with each other. But we appreciate all the chat. We're about 30 plus minutes into this post-game stream. If you all like what you hear, if you like this duo, if you want to see more of this duo, make sure you hit that thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. I think I'm only about 17 subscribers away, 900 on my channel. So please, if you can help me out, come over to my channel and subscribe. I definitely would appreciate that. And keep subscribing and hitting that thumbs up. Like, it helps us out. It helps the algorithm out. And like you said, as these games get more and more important, these talking points become more and more people start to tune in, and we cannot be more appreciative of that fact. And I think that John could definitely attest to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to give a shout out here to Frank T, who's always in my chat, always in my live streams. After we won that last game in Arizona, Frank said the Mets would go on a 10-game winning streak. And we have not lost since. What's tonight? Win 7?
It's win 7.
Yeah, so let's go. So
shout out Frank for that.
Yeah,
shout
absolutely.
out Frank. I wouldn't have predicted that. I would have been like, all right, Chicago White Sox sweep. I wouldn't have predicted a sweep of the Boston Red Sox. So kudos to you, Frank. Absolutely, 100%.
Because 100%. I was actually worried about that Chicago series, just because, right, we're the Mets. We're going to be the team that ends up losing to the White Sox. Now, I didn't get to see Sunday's game. I had somewhere I had to go, but man, apparently that was a nail biter. 1-0 into the 9th inning, and 14, 15 strikeouts.
Yeah, I caught the tail end of that. I was in a different time zone on vacation, but I caught the tail end of that, and it was nice to see the Mets pull through some late runs. And that's something that I think has been consistent while we're on the topic of the offense before we move on, is that the name of the game for the Mets recently, and we saw it last night, we saw it tonight, is the ability to scratch insurance runs late in ball games. And you don't really always want to leave it up to chance late in ball games and keep ball games close. Obviously, in the perfect scenario, you're going to go out, get off a fast start, and just blow the other team out. But that's not realistic at all against teams, right? And it's good to see the Mets clutch up, the Mets offense in particular clutch up and be able to scratch across runs late in ball games, however it may be. Last night it was the hitting, right, via the home run with Vientos and Pete Alonso, and tonight it's via disciplined at bats and not chasing pitches out of the zone, because the Boston Red Sox just had no ambitions of throwing a strike in that 8th inning. So I love to see the versatility of the Mets lineup late in these games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that, like I said, as much as the game was frustrating from the first up until that point, man, the patience really shone through, and they all came through in big spots. I mean, 5 walks. I mean, that's some patience there for 5 walks in 1 inning. So Great stuff there. But man, what a the big thing again I wanted to bring up. I took some notes here during the stream here. Not only for Mets pitching, how they came through this series, they kept Devers off the board as well. Devers in the series was 0 for 11 and only had a sacrifice fly tonight. And he was really the only guy I was concerned about, really.
Right. That's unbelievable. That guy's a talented hitter. I know he's dealing with some upper extremity sort of injury and soreness, but like that guy's a premier hitter. He's getting paid like one with his extension that he got from Boston. And the Mets pitchers did a great job in terms of neutralizing him and making him a non-threat, especially in some key situations. And like Junior's saying here, in one of those situations and talking about the defense and all the double plays that the Mets got out of their bullpen, right? And they just so happened to just roll over to Jeff McNeil or to Francisco Lindor for the double plays 3 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
One of those double plays, I believe, forgive me if I'm wrong, I believe it was Alex Young who got brought in for Tyler Megill, and that's who induced the double play on Rafael Devers. But yeah, holding Devers to an 0 for 11, I believe you said throughout the series, that's a win within itself. That is a testament to the pitchers and them executing pitches. Absolutely.
Yeah, like you said, 3 straight innings of double plays to end the innings, 5th, 6th, and 7th. But also go back to the 4th inning when they picked off Alvarez picked off the runner at first base to end the inning. I
Awesome.
honestly, I complain about that a lot during the streams. I really don't like when Alvarez does that because I think he throws the ball past Pete quite often. But man, tonight was perfect. They had him picked off perfect.
He's a little bit of a loose cannon, Alvarez is, with his pickoff attempts, no matter what base it is, whether he's throwing behind the batter to third base or especially that first base toss, like you said, with Pete Alonso. It's always sort of a crapshoot, but he caught the runner slipping tonight and worked out. A lot of people have been getting on Francisco Alvarez's defense, and listen, deservedly so, deservedly so. But I think what I saw from him the past 2 nights behind the dish has been very encouraging. I know he hasn't been throwing runners out at a high clip like we're used to seeing him do, and as much as Terens is doing, I know that he's let some pass balls go. He's been kind of a little bit on the lazier side in terms of actually getting all the way down to block the ball. But I really do think that it's a matter of time before we start to see the old Francisco Alvarez back in terms of the both sides of the plate, the defense, right, and the offense. And I think that we're slowly going to start to see him come around as he kind of gets out of this rut. So 100% great defense. And Ricardo also in the chat wants me to shout out Danny Young specifically. Danny Young is a guy that I've been hard on because I miss Brooks Raley so damn much. I think that this bullpen could even be a lot better if that Brooks Raley injury didn't happen, obviously. But yeah, 100%. Danny Young deserves all the credit, and he's been posting some zeros the last couple times out, and that's exactly what we need from this bullpen. Not only from Danny Young, but Alex Young, Huascar Braziban, Phil Maton, and the list goes on and on and on.
See, Frank T says finally Albie seems healthy. See, I don't think so. I think that thumb's still bothering him, and I think that could be part of his hitting problem. Not so much the catching, but I think his at bats are hurting him because of that thumb or wrist or whatever it was.
Well, he takes a beating back there no matter what, even after that wrist injury. I mean, the very next game, or at least that very next series, he was just taking balls off the hand back there. And obviously, catching is just a grueling position to be in, and the ball's always coming your way, deflecting, etc. But yeah, 100%. He's the type of guy where I'm like, okay, I know he's not going to sit because he has a little bit of a nagging injury. If he can play through it, even if he has minimal pain, he seems like the type of player, whether it's due to his age or just his competitive nature, he's going to go out there and be there for his team and go out there and play. And I respect that 100%. I love those types of warriors. But there's a certain point where I would hope the coaching staff and the medical staff take the decision out of his hands if he is truly hurt. But if he's out there on a consistent basis, of course, everybody's dealing with a nagging injury, but I'm going to presume, me personally speaking, that he is good enough to go out there and make contributions to the team. So that's why I don't really talk about the injury, but 100% being a catcher and with as much of a multitude of injuries that he's had to his hand, I would not put it past anybody, right, that he's dealing with something in that wrist or that hand.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That thumb is definitely bothering behind the plate. Yep. Congrats on 4K. Just saying hi. Hey, Suited Duck. Suited Duck is a Phillies fan.
Phillies fan in the chat. All right. Yeah. All right. I'm not going to start talking about the NL East crown at this point because the Mets are kind of right there with a couple of games to play against the Phillies, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But shout out to the Suited Duck for sure.
Darren says Mendoza managing to win by not waiting to pull the plug on Megill tonight. And I give him credit for that tonight, not only on Megill, but any pitcher. He came and pulled the plug as soon as he thought they were done.
That's the beautiful thing about Carlos Mendoza to me, and I think that he's really going to have a year no matter where the Mets end up. Obviously, his case is a lot more justifiable if the Mets actually make the playoffs in his first year. But there's been instances where you've seen him go out there and give a pep talk to Luis Severino. We're kind of wondering if he's going to pull Luis Severino or maybe Sean Manaea in the later stages of the game. He goes out there, takes the mound visit instead of Jeremy Hefner. Gives him a couple of words of encouragement, right? And says, this is your out to get. This is your inning to have. And there's other instances, like you said, tonight and many other occasions where he has the quick trigger and he wants to mitigate any sort of extensive damage as much as possible. And I really do commend him. He's not going to hit on 100% success rate with all these decisions. That's just not feasible. And no manager in the league is going to hit 100% on their decisions. And I think a lot of Mets fans expect that. And I think that if you are one of those Mets fans, you should temper your expectations with that. But I think that all in all, the soundness in which he is making his decisions with in terms of the rationale, I can put myself in his shoes and I can be like, I know what he was thinking there, and I trust in that process, even if it doesn't work out in that instance. Maybe 9 times or 8 times out of 10 that would have worked out, and that bad decision, quote unquote, was just a one-off fluke. So yeah, 100%. Mendoza's been pushing all the right buttons. We've been saying that for this whole entire season. Rob and I have.
Yeah, Caps here with dropping some information. Mets bullpen since Phil Maton has become a Met. ERA 9th, opponent's average 1st, opponent's OPS is 3rd, whip they're 7th, and strikeouts are 2nd. And he said that is MLB rankings, not National League rankings.
So when I said that this was a top 5 bullpen, it wasn't really a stretch, was it? And I'm not, and if you're in this chat, I saw him in this chat earlier. MEZ, I know you're in this chat. I'm looking directly at you, MEZ. Thank you, Daniel, for pulling that up for me because MEZ and I go way back in terms of me calling this Mets bullpen elite, and I want to make sure that he realizes what Daniel just put in there. I understand that all the categories are top 5. I understand that, but guys, this bullpen is a lot better than you think. And that's just the bottom line. It really is. That's
and Ricardo says Maton definitely a great move. I thought nothing of it at the time. Was that the one for cash considerations?
No, they sent a prospect over for Maton. I just forgot who it was.
Oh.
I forgot who it was. Gonna kill me now that I don't know who it was.
Raymond says great.
But anyways, regardless, getting that type of production from a reliever that you got 3 whole weeks before the deadline is insane. That's just a testament to David Stern's genius. That was a terrific move. Terrific.
Cope says we gave our bullpen so much crap earlier this year. The turnaround has been amazing. Well, look at all the guys. I mean, I couldn't even tell you who. Well, I know a lot of the guys got hurt, but I couldn't tell you who some of the guys were at the beginning of the year that are no longer here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's been the perfect storm. Obviously not the injuries aside, but when you take a look at the personnel and the guys that have come out of the blue, right? Come out of the blue. Reed Garrett, Daniel Nunez, right? Those guys, where do they come from? Having the resurgence of a guy like Edwin Diaz after he went and he got put on the IL after a couple of blown saves, right? We were all kind of wondering how he's going to bounce back from that major injury. Obviously, Brooks Raley was a huge, I guess, injury hit to this bullpen, but they kind of just strapped up and put something together. Now you have a tandem of Alex Young and Danny Young, and you have all the additions at the deadline and Huascar Brazaban, Phil Maton, Ryan Stanek. Like, this is just a perfect storm, and it takes a sort of genius, right? And I love to call David Stearns a genius. I really do, because with the amount of injuries and unfortunate circumstances in Jorge Lopez situation and the Edwin Diaz suspension, even, like, to be able to say that the Mets bullpen weathered that storm with the personnel that they currently have or did have at one point this season is just truly freaking amazing. It really is.
Ricardo is willing to drive Megill to the airport free of charge.
You and I both, but he's got 2 options left, so that's probably not likely.
Stearns deserves a lot of credit for making the right moves. Yeah, and Torrens, absolutely stealing Torrens from the Yankees.
Yep, that was cash considerations. Chat, help us out. Who was the prospect that went over in the Maton deal? I know it was a prospect. I'm just confusing who it is now.
The infamous
Terenzo's
team
cash,
meeting.
which is also just a genius move as well. But
the infamous team meeting turned the Mets around. Yeah, that was after we got blown out by the Dodgers, I think, right? I mean, man, the Mets were at a low point. So let's see. What's the chat got going? Good starting pitching. Peterson, Manaea, and Severino. That and Manaea, that's going to be, because I believe Manaea's got to opt out. So that'll be something we'll have to keep an eye on.
Definitely worthy of a re-sign. I think Luis Severino as well, but we'll definitely monitor that situation. I mean, Sean Manaea.
Oh, Daniel said it was player to be named or cash.
Or cash. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought that it was a player to be named, but I thought they actually named the player. I just then there you go. Maybe I think you were right then. At that point, it was cash.
Jeremy's been posting updates all night. The Tigers are now up 5-0 in the fourth.
Let's see that continue. I really don't think that the second wild card at the very is out of the question. I really don't.
Yeah,
I don't. And I don't think the Padres or the Diamondbacks are that much better than the Mets. I mean, we just played a series with both of them, and we hung in there toe to toe. So, like,
and we have the tiebreaker against both those teams.
Exactly. So it's not out of the question. Keep winning ball games, and good things will happen. That's the bottom line.
Last time I say hi in here to anyone, September, my friends. What's that mean? What's up, Stoney?
What's up, Stoney?
After that meeting, they went from the Mets to the Lindors.
Hey, and I'm all for that. I don't care what you name the New York Mets. If they're the Lindors, so be it. He is putting this team on his back.
Mendoza has shuffled the starting rotation. He has moved Manaea up to Friday and Quintana to Saturday. And I think that gives Severino his full rest, right? Going Sunday.
I would assume so. Let's talk about that real quick, because we do have a graphic for that. And I got it right. So I did get that right, actually. I do have Manaea, Quintana, Severino. There you go. Wizardry. I somehow got that right. Sean Manaea, this is the outlook for the new series coming up for you all, right? Electric 8-3 victory tonight. We kind of went over that. We kind of got into the chat a little bit as well, but we have a series coming up. We have an off day tomorrow, so enjoy your off day. I know I'm going to enjoy the off day. I think we have a roundtable going with Hector, myself, Rob, and Hayden. TBD what time, so make sure you all are tuning into that. But new series coming up. The Cincinnati Reds have kind of fallen off of a cliff, right? Mm-hmm. I think they won tonight, but they're 67 and I got to squint here. I think 73. It says I don't
73.
really know exactly what it says.
Yep, 67
exactly,
and 73.
So, and you see the pitchers that the New York Mets have lined up here. This inspires a lot of confidence in me. Now, I'm not the most confident in Jose Quintana. Everybody should know that by now. But Sean Manaea and Luis Severino, absolutely. So this is a series, like you said, not up to the level of competition that the Boston Red Sox or the Diamondbacks or the Padres would provide, but nonetheless a scrappy team that has a lot of good young talent that at this stage of the spoiler type season that these lesser teams are playing in right now in September, a series that you cannot overestimate whatsoever.
I want to look it up right now, because even though they are 67 and 73, they've outscored. They're 6 games under 500, but they've outscored their opponents by 20 runs on the season. So they're in. They're always in ball games. Probably too far out now with 9.5 out. But yeah, I actually love. I don't know who's going to go for Cincinnati in the 3 games, but I am confident, and maybe not so much out of the 3 games. Not so much in Quintana, but he's been pitching much better as of late. But Friday and Sunday, almost. I mean, I don't want to think of them as wins, but you almost have to on paper, right?
So that's kind of a great point too. We were talking about that with Rob and myself. What do you think of these types of series? Do you go into these series against these lesser opponents, let's say like the Chicago White Sox, which ended up being a sweep, and then now the Cincinnati Reds? Do you go into these series looking at it as like you need to sweep this series? If it's not a sweep, it's sort of a dud, or do you think series win and then we move on? What do you think?
Well, usually series win. I'll take 2 out of 3 every series. But since Chicago, I wanted to sweep. I was like, if the Mets don't sweep, we might not have to worry about the playoffs. But we did go in, and so even though the last game was only 2-0, but at least they did get the victories. And then I mean, coming into this Boston series, I wanted 2 out of 3. I'll take 2 out of 3 every time. If you have that mentality over the course of the season, you're winning 96 plus ball games.
And that's about 20 plus ball games over what some people would have thought the Mets would have won this season. I'm not saying the Mets are going to win 96 ball games. I don't think that's really realistic. But I mean, we, at least myself personally, had the Mets at the beginning of the season in the mid 80s in terms of the win column, and I was kind of looked at sideways by some fans, particularly before the JD Martinez signing. But a lot of people still weren't bought in after the JD Martinez signing. But nonetheless, the Mets are in prime position to get up right to that 85th win. With the majority of September left, they're already at 76, and you got a good opportunity here to add a couple more against the Cincinnati Reds. Listen, John, this schedule is sort of grueling. I'm not going to lie. It is grueling. I'm not sure. Do we have the Marlins one more time? The pesky Marlins. I think we have maybe one more time, but I know we have the Braves, we have the Phillies twice, and then we have the Brewers.
And we have the Brewers. That's going to be tough. That Brewers series,
tough.
man.
That is tough.
Let me go to
I
the
think
Mets
we have the
schedule.
Marlins somewhere in there.
All right, we have the Reds. Then we go to Toronto and Philadelphia. Then we're back home for the Nationals and Phillies. And then the Braves and Brewers to end the season.
It was the Nationals that I was thinking of. But yeah, I mean, still, regardless, the Braves, Phillies, Brewers, that is a tough testament. And like I always say, the Mets put themselves in this position to have minimal margin of error. And if you want to go ahead and show us that you are a true playoff caliber team, you are going to beat these teams and solidify yourself as such. And that is exactly what myself, I'm sure you, and the rest of this chat are expecting out of the New York Mets between now and the end of the season, game 162.
Yeah, well, Stoney says, when do we play the Braves? It's September 24th through the 26th, which originally it looks like that was only supposed to be a 2-game series because it says the 26th is a makeup from April 10th.
Yeah, I forgot that they tacked that on into the later part of the season. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. Honestly, at that point, why not? The Mets are a much better team now than they were before. So I'm kind of all in favor of that.
Yep. Going to Toronto, not going to be easy walk in the park either. Nope. None of these teams are going to roll over. The MLB changed it. I think this is the first year they changed it where teams are only allowed to call up 2 extra players. Where in past years, a lot of teams were able to expand their rosters much further and play a lot of young guys and get guys some playing time, but not anymore. Milwaukee will be pitching their pitchers one way or another. Don't forget that long layoff for division winner. Yeah, and right now, I mean, I know we got a couple weeks left before that end of the month series there, but the Brewers right now are still fighting for that number 1 spot in the National League.
Yeah, they are. And that's a team that surprised me as well. I mean, with their off-season departures, personnel-wise and front office-wise, I didn't really think that they were going to have a shot at repeating in the NL Central, but here they are. I mean, that's a sustainable franchise right there.
Agreed. I did not expect them. I think in my preseason video I definitely did not pick them to win their division. I believe I picked St. Louis this year, but man, Milwaukee knows what's going on. And I wonder how much of these guys that are still with the team were Stearns guys.
Are you talking about the Brewers or the Mets right now?
The
Brewers, right?
Brewers, yeah.
Yeah.
Like how many of the guys, the players on the team were either brought up through the farm system with Stearns or
I would think a good majority of them, honestly.
Yeah.
I would think a good majority of them. I think that's a safe bet.
Mets haven't done well against the Brewers for a while. Nope. Stoney says we make a pretty good team.
Appreciate you, Stoney. More where that's coming from. A lot more post games coming your guys' way.
So. We make a good team as well. Brewers are pesky. Yes, they are. So I don't know. I mean, another big series coming up against Cincinnati. Because you can't look past. Not to say the Mets are going to, but fans can look ahead, right? But no, I don't know. I don't know if players actually do. But man, this series coming up against Cincinnati, it's a big one as well. At least we're home.
Yeah. Every series is a big one coming up for the Mets, but I agree with you. The fans can always look forward, but the players, I would have to imagine you have to take it one day at a time. And honestly, one day at a time also means enjoying an off day, which is tomorrow, because these players have off days as well. Let's not forget about that. It's a grueling season, and they got families and lives and bodies to rest as well. So the off day tomorrow is going to be, obviously, I always love to see Mets baseball, and I love to see the streams and be on stream and talk about the post games and the games or whatever. But at the end of the day, this is a much needed off day for the New York Mets, and I really hope that they regroup, get their minds right, and head back out there for game one against Cincinnati with the right mindset for sure.
Yeah, Ricardo says got to go at least 4-2 in the next 6. Yeah, I kind of agree with that as well. P and John make it happen on a regular. At the point, no team will lay down. They will all fight. Yep, like even the White Sox. I mean, look what the White Sox did tonight to the Orioles.
Yep.
A team fighting. Now, the Orioles get lucky and the Yankees get crushed again tonight by Texas.
I haven't been paying attention to AL baseball, to be honest with you. I gotta do my research on the AL races going on.
Let me just catch up. So once again, sorry, chat, especially if you're on my side, the Pure Adrenaline side. During my live streams, I keep up with all the chat. But man, doing a post game, completely different story. Which I hope most of them understand. I know a lot of the people that hang out in my live streams also are usually in your pre and post game shows as well.
Yeah, the pre and post games are an interesting dynamic, and you'll soon figure out that you got to get as much content and talk about as much content from the game while also keeping the chat engaged. Whereas in your play-by-play streams, obviously there's a lot of downtime to get some of the comments as well. So it's a completely different ball game. But I'm so excited for this collaboration. I'm sure everybody in the chat has been giving us good feedback, and they want to see more of us. So like I said, more often than not, obviously always schedule permitting from my side. I do have a life outside of podcasting, and you do as well, John. So schedule permitting, for the rest of the season, this duo will be happening, and even perhaps maybe a trio with Rob coming on here as well with us. We'll make that happen for you all, and we'll be talking Mets baseball for the foreseeable future. So I definitely appreciate everybody for tuning in with us and talking about this electric sweep of the Boston Red Sox, 8-3 at home. Mets sweep. They improved to 12 games over 500. They are steadily approaching 80 wins on the season. And guess what? This was the first ever Pure Adrenaline Sports times CP New York Sports post-game New York Mets post-game show, and I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed it too. And CP, thanks for setting most of this up tonight. I love the layouts. So good stuff, man. And thanks for agreeing to do some of these as well. It's something I've wanted to add to my channel all season long. Just haven't had much time, but now that we're getting towards the end of the season, things are more critical. So want to continue building our fan not fan base, but you know, my group of people that hang out with me, especially you. You're getting close to 900 subs as well. So, guys, if you guys are on the Pure Adrenaline side, make sure you check out CP and his channel as well. Get him up over. I know I did redirect some people over you tonight, but it wasn't everybody. So it's weird how I can do that from different streams, but that was pretty cool. So yeah, next time add Rob for the ultimate trio.
100%. 100%.
Rob.
If you want Pete Alonso rants, we'll get Rob on here 100%. I mean, you'll have it. You'll have enough of it, Stanley. I promise you. And then we'll get a lot of Rob going on. But yeah, I appreciate that. Like I said, I appreciate everyone being in here. Everybody from my chat, everybody from your chat, everybody in between that may be new to either of our channels. We definitely appreciate it. We're just about over an hour here on the post game. I think we're going to be wrapping it up here. It was an electric series victory. It was an electric sweep. 8-3. The Mets get the job done, and they earn a well-deserved rest day tomorrow. And as do we. So don't include Hector. Well, you guys will get your fair share of Hector blunt thoughts in our roundtable tomorrow. So that's exactly how it's going to go down. But Jeremy, Darren, Stanley, Cope, Jr., Ray, everybody, I appreciate it. Charles all the way at the top, Stony, everybody in the chat. You guys were great. Raymond, everybody, like Daniel, I can't forget Daniel Caps, always supporting the channel. Appreciate you all being here. It's your boy CP. That is John. This is the first New York Mets post-game show between us two in the books, and we'll see you all later. Let's go Mets. Enjoy the off day, and we'll catch you right back here, presumably on Friday. I'll catch you all later. Peace.